Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of 1 Thessalonians
with Dan Irvin.
Well, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3, Paul writes these words. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality. This word sanctified, which means being made holy, being formed into the image of Jesus. This is one of the first areas that Paul touches on here in this idea of being formed into the image of Christ is our sexual integrity. And even as I say those words, as maybe you read those words, you're thinking, okay, I didn't know this was part of the Bible. I didn't know this was really something that we could talk about in church, perhaps. Why would God care so much about what I do with my body? Shouldn't this be more of a private matter? But Paul's point is precisely this, is that what we do with our bodies matters to the God who made us. And this is completely countercultural to what is going on in our world today. Our world would say, what's good for you, and if you're not hurting anybody else, go ahead and do it and have it if you want it. But we were created in the image of God, body and soul, and how we live physically and in our sexual lives, it reflects what we believe about God. So why does Paul call the Thessalonians here to avoid sexual immorality? Is he just trying to point out, is God just trying to take away fun and pleasure, things that are good? Well, actually, on the opposite, Paul is not teaching here and not pointing to the fact, God is not trying to repress anybody. God is actually trying to protect the people that he loves. Think about it in this way. If you think about a fire, inside of a fireplace, it brings warmth, light. Or inside of a bonfire pit, it's beautiful, it's good. But when fire gets outside of the fireplace or the bonfire pit, onto the carpet, in the room, in the forest, it can become destructive. It can burn down the house. And that's what Paul is saying here about sex, is that God designed sex. It was his idea. Designed it to be good, to be powerful, to be beautiful within the covenant of marriage, within the fireplace. When taken outside of that covenant, it can become something that tends to unravel people, tend to pull people away from relationships, from God himself. It can damage our hearts. It can distort our identity. God isn't trying to keep anything from us when he puts these limits on what sex is and what sex isn't in the Bible. God's actually trying to protect us. So what does this mean for us? Paul writes to a group of people here that they had come out of this sexually permissive culture. In Thessalonica, prostitution was on every street corner. If you wanted it, in a sense, sexually, you could have it, you could find it. In many ways, the culture that we live in today is not much different. And the question that I have today for you as you listen is what does honoring God in this area of your life look like? In your sexual life look like? And, many of you are in different places. You're married, maybe you're dating, maybe you're single. Think about your dating life. Think about your marriage. Think about what you view on the internet. Think about the things that you even think about. As you're late at night and you're just scrolling through your phone. God isn't trying to bring this sense of conviction on any of us to bring us down, but conviction is meant to bring healing, to bring hope. The gospel, the good news of Jesus is that Jesus gave up his own physical body to redeem our lives, our physical body, our emotional self, our spiritual self. Jesus died not just to forgive the sins that you commit, but to heal the shame that we carry with that too. The invitation is to live in a free way, in a whole way, in a joyful way, in a way that God designed us to live. And I know even as I bring all this up, many of you have pain associated with this, a past perhaps goes along with this. I'd encourage you to find someone in your life, if you don't have a person already, who you can be open and honest with about this area of your life. Maybe it's a a friend, a therapist, someone in your group at church, whoever it might be, a spouse, someone needs to know, if nobody knows, what is going on in this area of your life, because often it can be the thing that is easiest to conceal, easiest to hide from other people. The God who made you and created you and who thought about sex, who designed sex, wants you to have freedom in this area to live, to look more like his son, Jesus, in all of this.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.